This is episode 22. In the last episode, we had covered till verse 18 of chapter 3, where God talks about Karma Yoga. Today, we will cover 8 verses of chapter 3, that is verses 19 to 26. Let's do the literal translation first, and then I will talk about some interesting things. Let us go through these verses first. Verse 19 is, Tasmat asakta satatam karyam karm samachar asakto hi acharan karm param apnoti purusha. God says, O Arjun, therefore giving up attachment, perform actions as a matter of duty. Because by working without being attached to the fruits, one attains the supreme or a state of eternal peace. This is verse 19. Param is always a reference to realizing God or attaining a state of eternal peace and happiness. Now, verse 20 is Karmanev hi sansiddhim asthita janakadaya lok sangraham ev api sampashyam kartum arhasi. God says that by performing Karma Yoga, Janak and others attained realization. Janak was a king and a saint, and hence he signifies action as well as knowledge or rational discrimination. So, by performing action, Janak and others like him realized the supreme. You should also perform action for the benefit of other people or to show them the right path. Lok Sangraham is a reference to public interest, which could be doing good for people or could be showing the right path to people. Paramahansa Yoganand defines it as showing the right path to people. For the purpose of rightly guiding people, thou should perform action. This is verse 20. Then verse 21 is Yat yat acharati shrestha tat tat ev itarah jana sa yat pramanam kurute lokah tat anuvartate. God says that whichever actions great persons perform, common people follow, and whichever standards they set are pursued by everyone else. Anuvartate means following. This is verse 21. And then verse 22 is very important and a celebrated verse of the Gita. In this verse, God is saying, Na me partha asti kartavyam trishu lokeshu kinchan na anvaptam avaptavyam varte evcha karmani. O Parth, which is the name for Arjun, there is no duty for me to do in all the worlds, nor do I have anything to gain or attain. Yet I am always engaged in action. I am always acting, or I mingle in all actions. I exist in all actions. There is nothing for me to do in all the 3 worlds, and there is nothing that I have to achieve. But I am always engaged in action. This is verse 22. And then verse 23 is Yadi hi aham na varteyam jatu karmanya tandrita mam vartma anuvartante manushya parth sarvasha. God says that if I was not always acting without ever getting tired, then all human beings would follow my path in all respects. If I do not perform my righteous action, then they will follow the same and not perform theirs too. That's verse 23. Verse 24 is Utsideyur ime loka na kuryam karma chet aham sankarasya cha karta syam uphanyam ima prajah. God says that if I ceased to perform action, then all these worlds would be destroyed or ruined. Utsideyur means to be put to ruin. So these worlds would be put to ruin, and I would be responsible for the confusion and destruction or death of the human race. This was verse 24. I will read verses 25 and 26 together. Saktah karmani avidvansa yatha kurvanti bharata kuryat vidvan tatha asakta chakirshu lok sangraham na buddhi bhedam janayet agyanam karma sanginam joshiyet sarv karmani vidvan yuktah samacharan. God says, O Bharat, which is a name for Arjun, the way ignorant people perform their duties with attachment to the fruits of action, the wise should act without attachment for the sake of leading people on the right path. God further adds that the wise should never attempt to remove the ignorance in the intellect of ignorant people. The wise should instead act in an enlightened and equanimous manner without trying to exhort or persuade the ignorant to perform their righteous action. God says that one should not lecture or exhort those who are performing action with an attachment to the fruits of action to get rid of their ignorance. Instead, one should perform their duties in an unattached and equanimous manner, which will help them progress on the right path. So this is verse 26. And these 8 verses continue the discussion on Karma Yoga. If you look at verses 24 to 26, you will notice God says, I also work, so you need to also perform your prescribed duties. He says that there is nothing for me to do in this world, and yet I am always engaged in action. He further adds that if I am not always acting, then the universe, along with all human beings, will perish. What do we mean by God performing action? The universe is always filled with action. For example, nuclear fusion takes place in the sun, through which energy is created, and this energy comes over to the earth and gives life to every living being and creature. Nothing will happen if this energy is not there. So action is happening in the sun and everywhere else in this universe. It is said that entropy is increasing in the universe, which is a measure of increasing activity in the universe. So God is always engaged in action, and hence He advises all of us to be performing action and be working at all times. Verses 22 to 24 are very important verses and important to remember. I have said many times that Sankhya Yoga is followed by Karma Yoga. God says that being always engaged in action is important, and I am doing the same. This is a very important verse to ponder on. One thing I forgot to explain in verse 3.12, when God says that one who nourishes without providing the benefits of yajna to the devas and enjoys the fruits of the yajna is a thief. Why does he use the word stain or thief in verse 3.12? I had mentioned that devas are small objectives. It is important to first learn how to solve a mathematics problem, control a football or hit the gym, and then only you will earn the right to realize God and attain eternal peace. As I said, for a small child, it is important to understand the difference between P and Q first, or learn how to walk first. While achieving these small goals, it is also important to do action with yoga. Let's say someone received these benefits, such as solving a maths problem or controlling the football, without doing action with yoga. Let's also assume someone can maintain a good body without hitting the gym. How is this possible? The reason behind this could be that some magic happened or the person won a lottery, but it may well have been achieved through unethical means. Maybe he or she took someone else's help in solving the maths problem, or maybe he or she is showing a morphed picture of their great body in great shape. But in reality, that is not the truth. Keeping in mind all of these scenarios, the word thief or stain is used by God in this verse. Another point is that in chapter 2, we talked about the self-realized or sthit pragya. We talked about nirvana and eternal peace. Paramahansa Yogananda also talks about kutastha chaitanya or the summit consciousness, where you are always in a state of eternal happiness. It is also called Christ consciousness, since Paramahansa Yogananda compares Lord Krishna to Jesus Christ a lot. You will find Kutastha Chaitanya in the book of ISKCON's Swami Prabhupada as well as in many other places. What is Kutastha Chaitanya? It is a state of eternal peace. Kut means summit or peak of a hill. So Kutastha Chaitanya means summit consciousness, or the consciousness which is as strong and immovable as the peak of a hill. You will frequently see the usage of this word in many places. I won't get into complicated definitions of Kutastha Chaitanya. My interpretation of it is a state of eternal peace and happiness, as explained in Adi Shankar's famous verse, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham, which means God's form is pure bliss and happiness. We will stop here. Thank you.